Does anybody want to share their exercise first? Either the prop exercise or the miniature exercise?
My exercise has copyright, so the recording. The recording.
So you can't do it during the recording?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine, we'll do it afterwards.
Yeah,
Does anyone else want to go first?
awesome, man.
All right. I'm going to stop
Yeah.
sharing and say that you can share. So you can go ahead and share your screen if you want.
All right. Yeah, because mine is really not really complicated, but everything is pretty much there. Right. So the mood, the set was this, like a night scene, right? But I'm
Are
gonna
you trying to
put
share your
with-
screen right now?
Oh no, yeah, hold on. I'm doing it
Okay,
wrong.
yeah. I thought you were just explaining it before you would.
Oh no. Okay, so share screen. Okay, share. Did it work?
I'm not seeing anything.
No. Oh, it's
Let me
not.
see.
Oh, let me see. Let's try again. Share. You know what? I I can just email you them. I can just send them to you directly.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's not. Yeah, because I think there's too much going on my computer because it's like a security thing that just came up.
Okay, got you.
And it's,
You
like,
can email it to
stopping
me and
it.
I'll open it up. for
Yeah,
you.
okay, I'll send it to you. Right. So I'll send it through the chat. So I'll
Okay,
wait. I'll wait.
All right, anybody else want to go first? All right, I'll go ahead and go first. All right, so I'll start off showing. You want to show the props, Honey?
Yep.
You can share your screen then.
Screen. Can you believe I've done this multiple times and I still get confused?
Screen share.
Okay. No, I already did it. I think.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. All right. So first we tried doing a map. Like we printed out a map that
Didn't go over very well.
it was way too dark. So the inside of it, let me see. So the inside of it looked like that after we ruined it. Because we were like, oh, it looks too digital. Let's see if maybe by like getting it wet and rubbing it with coffee grounds, it'll look a little more worn down and more like a real map. And it didn't exactly work. So
It got a little more yellow, but it wasn't as
it wasn't what we were going for.
right. It wasn't what like as fadey looking as I was picturing when we first started doing it.
Yeah. So then we decided to do a letter, and we basically mixed a bunch of paints to make it look like blood.
Went a little overboard with it.
What?
I said I went a little overboard with the blood splattering.
Yeah, like blood spatter, because the idea is that this woman is writing this letter to her lover, letting her know that her husband found out about their affair, and she's going to run away and for him to meet her, but he finds it and her before she manages to run away and kills her and destroys the letter. So in this one, he kills her and he finds it with blood and stuff. And the other one, it's crumpled up and burnt into the fire.
Yeah, so the idea was like the guy came to look for her after a while of not seeing her, and he found either the letter with the blood on it, or he found a burned up letter in the thing and them gone, or her dead, or something like that.
Yeah. So we use like a little torch, like those candle torch thingies, and we singed it and burned it, like the corners, the middle, and all this stuff. We crumpled it up.
Well, we put it in like a tin container.
Yeah.
And then burned it.
And then burned it, yeah. And the other one, I wanted to crumple it up a little bit more. We should have crumpled it up a little bit more.
I was waiting for the blood to dry.
Yeah, we were waiting for that's what I was about to say. But we were waiting for the blood to dry, and it took forever. I don't know why, but that paint took forever to dry. But we used a specific, was it parchment paper?
Yeah.
Yeah, we used specific old parchment paper to give it like that old letter look. And that's, other than that and the paint, that's, we tried to use all materials that we already had at home or stuff that we got from the Dollar Tree. So like we said, this is a lot more about a creativity exercise and what you can do with the little you have. Because we know that in real life, in real productions, we would be spending more money, we would be having more time for equipment to arrive and all this kind of stuff. But we tried to be as creative as we could with what we had. So we wrote the letter and we bought the parchment paper and some Dollar Tree paint. And we crumpled it up with the fire we had at home, with the tin can we had at home. And yeah, that's what we did for the prop.
Yeah. All right, you can stop sharing your screen.
Mhm.
All right, cool. All right. Any questions or anything?
Isn't there
Oh, she was trying to read the letter. Oops.
did you
Oh.
guys look up any tutorials on how to do that? Because I think there was like a couple tutorials where the map, like I think you guys printed it out, but then you could also like would you guys say you use coffee grounds? I think like you can use
Yeah. So that was actually in our syllabus. We had it showed like how to do different paper ones, like paper props.
Mhm.
I'm assuming you guys were going for the the pirate map, like the old Pirates of the Caribbean type look.
Yeah.
That or like the Lord of the Rings kind of map-esque
Yeah.
look, like just like old parchment with like it is inked in, but it's like I don't know, it's not as it doesn't look like a printer ink, I guess.
I
Yeah, and we both
know
suck at drawing. So
like paper back in the day was a different kind of like paper. It wasn't like the paper we have today. But I think I saw somewhere it was like if you do what you guys did, you guys were like on the right track. But like if you like submerge it in like a jar of tea or something and let it sit for like an hour or two, then pull it out, let it dry, it should have more of an authentic look.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that way it like soaks into the whole thing and everything.
Yeah, and it gets that yellowish brownish color or something like that.
Yeah, because what we did use coffee grounds, and actually we submerged it in coffee, and then well we let it cool off first, of course, but then we put it in like the coffee, and it started like taking a lot of the ink off and mixing it with the coffee, and it looked like this gray, weird brown coffee.
And then I'm pretty sure you'd be able to find like
I was
what
considering
kind of,
like maybe putting it in the oven to bake it a little bit, but I wasn't sure how that would turn out.
yeah.
Be very
And
careful with how long you leave it in.
I would do research on like what that material they use to make those maps too, because like the maps had to go through like, especially out at sea, like they must have like put a lot of
oh crap. I was trying to like take a picture of the letter to send it through the group and something weird came out instead. So disregard that.
What?
I don't know why. I took a picture of like
That was your thing, yeah.
yeah.
But what were you saying, Brian?
Sorry, Brian.
oh, I was just saying like just looking at the maps on them in the movies, and I know it's like looking at something in a movie and actually holding it in your hand is completely two different things, but it just looks like, I don't know, it doesn't even look like real paper. It looks like something else.
Yeah.
I would do research to kind of like find out like what they use for maps, what materials they use back in the day.
Yeah, because
Aside
they could actually make their own, maybe. I know some
Yeah.
companies that do that, like where they actually make the paper themselves based on old things that they used to use to make paper or whatever they used to use.
Yeah, I feel like if we had more time and a little more money to invest in it, we probably would have tried a more specific paper. We would have tried different.
So what we did, we bought parchment, but I feel like you're saying, I don't think it's like authentic
I have
parchment paper. Mhm. What was that? Anyway, all right. So
I was gonna say, do you wanna read it since we were trying to figure out? Nah, it's crappy. Basically, it's just her saying that like.
hey, Vish, what'd you say?
Oh, Vish, sorry.
Where I had to, where I had my experience there. Once I had somebody's pocket and saved for a long time. So I had to age that letter, and I tried to use, the method which Brian had mentioned. There was a tutorial on YouTube, which basically says how to age it. And I didn't really soak the letter for 1 hour, as Brian was mentioning, or maybe the YouTube video was mentioning. I just like sprinkled around so it made it wet. And I think a couple of things to do is there's a lot of experiment, of course, with the quality of the paper, and that the ink has to be permanent, otherwise the ink will kind of bloat. But if that's what you want the look to be, if somebody has dropped water on the paper and then the ink kind of spreads out, right? So if you want that part of look, but if you want the age look, then there is a little bit of experimenting that you have to do. You may not get it at the first attempt, and I think the most important thing is how it looks, appears on film. That's the most important thing. So sometimes you may have the letter which may appeared kind of aged, but it may not be the right age that you want, right? Like an original paper that you may. So I had to do a couple of different times, different things, and experiment with it to make it look age and tone. So
which way do you think will work the best for yours?
What worked best for me?
Yeah.
Just a lot of experimenting. So I had to, get like maybe like 10 different versions of it to see which one I want to be, and it still didn't come out right. Maybe I was like, not artistic enough to get it the right way. I was just experimenting it. I had no idea what I was doing. So
yeah, we did the same thing. We started out with just like a blank piece of paper and did a few different things to it to see like how it would even look. But like with the ink and stuff, we didn't really I don't know. I didn't really think about it. I just thought it was going to turn it brown, dunked it in, and then the ink started coming off, and I was like, oh shoot, well, looks like a map that got wet, I guess.
Yeah, these days I think you get like get the permanent ink, so the ink remains pretty intact whether you no matter where you put it in, like the water or tea bags or coffee stains. Any amount of water will not let it spill. Once it is written down, right? So you can experiment with that permanent ink, and then just take the marker ink. I think you get the pen ink also. And some letters you can maybe write it with the ordinary ink, so it kind of spills out. So you get a kind of age look on that. So there's a lot of experimenting that you need to do with getting the right prop, I think.
I agree. Yeah, experimenting with like just the colors of the ink, and just with the for the blood, we were definitely like mixing different colors that we had to see like what would turn out what we were looking for anyway.
Yeah, and I think a good thing to start with is probably you get like a sample that what you want to target, and you kind of match that to your prop to that sample. That kind of helps. Yeah, because I was going with, I didn't have like any, I was clueless on which direction I was going, so I was just experimenting a bunch of different things. That made it a lot more difficult to get what I wanted. So that kind of definitely.
Nice. All right, Gabe sent his pictures over, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. And Gabe, you can go ahead and share
Yeah. So
what we're looking at.
all right. So I sent you. So they're like 4 of them, right? So you see the ones that say De'Ama.
Yes.
So there's De'Ama 2, De'Ama 1. All right, yeah, that one in particular. Funny story. How this happened. I really was just, I was going through my, my art stuff and just looking for like different patterns and stuff. And I found this project that I had done already. And the theme of the project was me, like, do a project and it has to be your personality and look how it shows up. I'm like, oh, perfect. So I'm like, wow, that's a dance floor. So it was just fun. I'm like, oh, okay, so I'll do the dance floor. I need 2 people to be the children. And then the in front of them that's really their mother. And that's supposed to be a lady under them. So that's a lady. So this is the lady that she had, she embarrassed them in front of their father. So basically, she slaps the lady. Then this is like at night, so the kids are in their pajamas, and then so the lady is like, the mother is like, these are their children. He has a family. These are their children. So basically, it's like, it has a little humor to it, and I got the idea. Like, okay, so like if you go back even more, you see 2022.
2022. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that is supposed to be like a different, position, So you have so basically the character could be peeking in from the back. And then, or it could be, in another position. So basically I did, just a couple of, renditions. I kind of thought that the disco ball was like the prop. So, so
a little big.
That's only a side. Yeah.
On the scale side.
Yeah, no, it was a big miss. It was a big miss, but I'm like, okay, it wasn't easy. That's my
okay. So your miniature is more just like a setup of how you go about shooting.
Yeah, so it's little. So basically, just to give you more of an idea of where the camera angles are gonna be.
Right. So like setting up your shot and everything.
Yeah, that's the right. So this is the other angle with the mother, and she's basically like she throws the lady in front of him, and then like, see, those are his children. They're shocked, and I'm like seeing, that could that could like go into another scene, or
Yeah, cool.
It's just like little elements like that.
Yeah, and that's what miniatures are for. They're either for shooting the scene, or they're for setting up how you would go about shooting it, so that when you get on location, you're all ready to go.
Yeah, and that's a DJ booth in the back. The little phone thing. That's a DJ booth.
This thing right here.
Right underneath the ball, on the cell phone.
Yeah.
So and that's supposed to be like where the DJ and everything is, and then it's it's loud, and there's music playing, and that's one aspect. It's supposed to be like a really like fast moving scene, like because the music is playing loud.
Yeah.
So that was an idea.
Nice. Do you have any other pictures that I didn't show?
Yeah, I do. You can just close those out. Because I know this was another angle.
Oh, like up on top. That's cool.
Yeah, so that was just the assignment. But you see what I mean? It would be like, what do you call it? It could be a drone.
A drone or like a crane shot. A crane
crane
shot,
shot,
that
yeah,
could be
more
like on a
likely.
crane if you had one. Definitely.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, now and that's like the main shot, as just looks over this scene. Yeah, that would be like the scene. Like, oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's it.
Okay, cool.
Mhm,
Yeah, nice job.
Thank you.
There's this one.
Oh yeah. So this is how I got the idea. So I'm putting things together little by little. So when so first I saw the art, I'm like, oh. Then I had these two little things that's on my dresser, on the table. I'm like, oh, let me throw that in. I got carried away. Then it was like, it just was just fun. Putting everything, together. Because now it's more, because I saw also too that you can, the best that you animated, right? Like, because I was thinking of having like animated drawing board.
Like an animatic.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Okay,
that's
yeah.
what I want to do. Mm-hmm.
You could also do,
Yes.
I know some that done like a stop motion kind of thing, where you like, if you're using something like this, you move them a little bit and you take another picture and
Yeah,
keep doing
that
that
one.
to
Yeah,
see like how you
that
want it
was
to
the
go
one.
about for the whole scene. They do that
That
too.
one is that one I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Stop
Yeah,
motion
that
is what you
one.
mean then. So you
Yeah,
keep the camera in the
exactly.
same spot and you just move the things around to
Move
show
it.
like how the scene plays out.
Right.
Or, in some instances, that's for the whole movie.
Right.
Stop motion.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions, comments, anything? Would anyone like to go next? Either the props or the miniatures exercise?
Okay, look, I'm going to go with Brian whenever he shows, because mine is also a copyrighted prop.
Okay, no problem. So after the meeting, we can look at you guys.
Sure, yeah. Thanks.
All right, cool. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and show our miniature exercise that we did. Let me see, where is that? Oh, I actually blew it up. So we wanted it to look kind of like an old, well, again, we were doing like what Priscilla's doing, where we bought some stuff from like Dollar Tree, and let me share my screen real quick. So we bought some stuff from Dollar Tree, and we already had like these little Christmas houses and things like that from Christmas decorations. So we decided to use those and then just add to it with different things to try to make it look a little more like a real live action footage. And then in editing, I added like snow and snow dropping and a little bit of fog to blur it up a bit. And then also to give it a more of like a old filmy Christmas look. I don't know about film, but like just old visual style, I guess. And then we added something. And that would pretty much fade into the scene or just like in that building. One thing I noticed was definitely the hardest thing to do was the camera movement. Any camera movement at all made it like jump around the whole scene. So next time I do that, I would definitely
You want to show the pictures?
try to
The
set it
setup we
up.
have?
So what we used was we had our screen in the background with an image of like I don't know if that's Aspen or it's somewhere like that, but it's just mountains with like little trees and things. We had to like find one that had trees that looked really far off, where it wouldn't look like the trees were too large. We set up our little Christmas scene. The road was from Dollar Tree. It was like a
cheap carpet.
It wasn't carpet.
No, mat.
It was
sorry.
a doormat. Yeah. And we cut that up and then
We
painted it with the acrylic paint, the yellow. And then I spray painted it with some white spray paint we had. With the cars, I also spray painted those just a bit for some of them. But the truck over here on the left, I spray painted it first, and then we were like, well, some of the cars would be there for a long time and some would be just coming in. And so that one we used for snow what do we use? Powder? No,
Flour.
not powder.
We use
Flour.
flour.
We were gonna use powdered sugar, but we didn't have any, so we used flour instead. I thought it turned out really good with the look of the
Yeah.
snow.
And we basically sprayed flour. Oh, don't mind the mess. We were like moving everything. But
I used a light to with a blue gel to make it look more of like a night scene. We actually had these little from Dollar Tree. We bought these little lights to go near the lamp post so that it was like reflecting real light off of things, or it could look like it was a fire in the background, I guess. Like I said, we used flour to make it look like snow on the cars and the houses. And you see, I only focused on like one side because we already knew we were gonna shoot from the angle that we shot at. And you know, they were Christmas houses, so they already had like stuff that looked sort of like snow, but
we just
to
wanted to
make
make
it look
the
more
fake
realistic.
snow look a little more realistic.
I like added flour in between all of the little bricks and stuff to make it look like it was snowed in. Whereas like if you just looked at it, it looks like there's no snow in it. so I had a little realism. We did that, and then we also had these little trees that had glitter, and I rubbed those over the flour as well to give them a little more of a realistic look and to kind of dull away the glitter. But yeah, and then in post-production, when we were editing it, like I said, I added the snow, the song, and the fog. And then I just color corrected the background a bit to make it a little more blue, since it wasn't matching as much as I'd like it to.
In the video itself, like pre-edited, the cars actually looked surprisingly realistic. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I actually think the cars look pretty good. So out of the whole thing, I think like the cars look pretty good. I liked the light. I think it looks more like a campfire somewhere over there to the right. The camera movement is the hardest thing to get down.
It was so
But I think if it wasn't for the camera movement, I think it would have been a lot more realistic looking.
Yeah, because our focus at first was to go from the beginning of the road, from the edge of the road, and then zoom in.
We haven't got. Oh, V asked if we got the flour off of everything yet. No, we haven't even
Not
started
yet.
on that yet. It's just sitting on a table. Oh, the other thing we did is we put it on a table.
That's
that
an
had-
undertaking that I'm going to take all weekend.
So we had this black table that you can see it on, and we just got a
Again,
Dollar Tree table cover, a white one, so we could put it over it because it was the color of that table back there. And so
Yeah, it
to
was a
turn it
black
white so
gaming
that it could
table,
look more
so-
like snow, we just did that.
Yeah, we put the white Dollar Tree sheet over it to look like snow. We folded it a little bit. Some of these crevices are actually on purpose, so it looks like, bunches. We also put a layer on the carpet that turned into the road to make it look more snowy, like icy.
I also had some clips where we came from behind the buildings, but I wasn't sure how much I liked them or not. Some of them did look pretty good though.
Do you want to show like another clip? Yeah, that's unedited. that
I'd
something
have
you
to
feel?
open it up, but yeah, let me do that real quick. I think it looks pretty good. The only thing I've noticed when I was looking at it was, again, the background, because the screen wasn't moving, but everything else was. It just makes it look weird whenever I did it.
Definitely looks the night scene pretty well, I think.
Yeah, I was actually really happy with it because I was like,
Yes.
holy crap, all we did was use stuff that we already had at home, like Dollar Tree stuff. Imagine if we had actually had time to get more professional looking buildings, like actually more realistically looking buildings, and to
I mean, until somebody pays really close attention, to details, you probably not. You can get away with it.
Yeah, and
Because of
especially
the-
because the other thing about miniature sets, if you're using them, is like, keep them on screen only a short time. Not doing too long, otherwise.
Or like an establishing, location kind of thing. Quickly show and get out. So
oh, that's the
So like that's the one I was talking about, where it's like,
corner of the
again, it's the camera movement, but I feel like that one's pretty good.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Thanks. But yeah, like I
Wow.
just the bumping up and down, any little increment
So annoying, yeah.
of bumping.
It just
we were
jumped
using
out.
a
That
slider.
just jumped out.
We were using a slider, but the darn thing kept like getting stiff, and like some parts were like smoother than others, and it was.
We were using Priscilla's phone because I had a camera, but we didn't. I don't know. I don't have like the macro lens and stuff. So
The phone
Yeah,
is way
Priscilla's
actually,
better.
camera on her phone, like it's pretty good to get close detailing.
Mhm.
So,
We also
but because
did
we were using her phone, it's very easy
Ooh,
to. Like,
that part.
Yeah, we also did it at HD 1080 instead of 4K because we wanted it to show less detail on purpose because it's
For the
a miniature.
background.
Yeah, because it's a miniature, so just better to not show as
How
much
is this
detail.
different? How is this different from the previous one you showed?
oh, it's the same one. I was just showing it over again.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Are you
So this
meaning
one
like from the
does-
first one?
Oh, this one's in the.
Oh, this is still the same one. I'm just going over it again and again slowly.
It's
Oh, I
just
see.
that there was a color change dramatically. Just that part. Like right after like the corner of that building,
Like right
you
here.
know, everything. Yeah, like right there is like crazy. It's like crazy.
Yeah.
So
Looks like
realistic.
this one was
Right?
not fogged, right?
That one was what?
This picture doesn't look fogged. The haze of the fog.
Oh, right. Yeah. These are the unedited ones. So I didn't add the snow and the fog to those yet.
Yes, yeah. So that snow and the fog makes a huge difference because you're right. I think in
Yeah.
this picture, it looks that building in the front
Real.
a little bit more extra detail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
A little bit too much.
Yeah. On the right,
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, but
On the
thank
right.
you, V. We appreciate it. Like we were kind of like
Yeah.
a little annoyed at first because it wasn't turning out how we wanted, but I'm still really happy with the way it turned out because of how little stuff we actually had to work with.
Yeah. So the main thing was just finding the angles that made it look. I mean, you know, it could have been a drone for some of the shots, but I think it looks more realistic the further you go down because then the cars start looking bigger, and it just looks like more like real shots. And I thought like obviously the night scene hides some stuff, so that's
So
why
the
I
building
wanted.
on the right, the lighted building on the right, like that looks pretty,
Right.
real.
Mhm.
It makes it dimensional, those two lights flashing and right, perfect. Those two lights.
Yeah,
It's, mm,
and it like reflects off that car, which I thought was really cool looking.
yeah, it could be a car.
Yeah.
Yup.
But your
Oh, did you
background,
see
Yeah,
Lee's
okay.
nice message?
Oh yes, this is inspired by.
And she's inspired to me.
Yeah, I found it really interesting, and like Priscilla was saying, like just being able to do that just with the little bit that we had, like it shows that miniatures do make a huge difference if you put the time in and you get it right. The only big thing is like, obviously camera movement. But I feel like if I had gotten my camera out and we used the slider and we had all the stuff that I have, we might have been able to get a little bit better shots. But yeah.
Your background came out really good. You can't really make it out. It's the background that you're using.
Mm. Yeah, we intentionally
Yeah.
blurred it out a bit, and I had to actually darken my screen because it was way too bright. And it was casting
Okay.
shadows on some of the stuff. The
I
other thing was
really-
like the placing of lighting, of course.
Yeah.
And like how we were using a screen instead of like just a backdrop, so that was giving off light, so we had to see how much we wanted to give off from there, and then we wanted to give off either from the side or the front and try to match it, because you see it adds shadow whenever there's any light anyway.
I'm really impressed, honey, how I actually saw the final product, but I'm noticing like how well you blended the background to the image. It was really good.
Yeah, actually in the footage, which is another thing I would have spent a little more time on with the background, but you can actually notice right here in the corner, you see that's a little more like pink around that building. I don't know if you guys can notice that or
A
not.
little bit. I see it. A little
Yeah,
bit.
so that's because I was like, it was too pink and the snow was too white compared to how the foreground looked. So I actually masked it out. I just did a quick mask though. And this building was the hardest to do because it has like this weird little circular thing. I didn't have enough little like clip things to do it. So, but I went frame by frame and just kind of moved that around. You can kind of see it moving around right there. But yeah, thought it was
what were you using for? What did you use for the lighting on the right-hand side of those?
yeah, the lighting, we actually did these, just the Dollar Tree. I don't know what they actually call them, but you can use them to put like in like little fake candles.
Like a candle, I see. So that's like flickering candle, is it?
Yeah,
Nice.
and that way it gave off that realistic light. Oh, also in the video, I did put a little bit of like a mask with like orange solid over the lamppost. It didn't really turn out how I wanted it to, but it lights up and darkens whenever that does. And that was actually like me just painting over it with an orange thing and masking it around the light.
Yeah, like the little details.
Yeah, that's another thing with miniatures, like the little details,
Make
even
it
though you don't really
different.
notice them, they do definitely make it more realistic. Or
Now, how do you get
not.
the snowdrops? How do you get the snowdrops? The snow falling
That was literally just a
filter
video like that.
of it. Oh,
So
okay.
it's just like I got a free stock footage element, and then I think I took down the opacity on it quite a bit because it looked too big. Yeah, I brought it down to 21% because it was too thick and too big looking compared to the miniature set. So then I took it down so that the spots were a lot smaller and it wasn't as white. But yeah.
So is that like a After Effects kind of a plugin thing? Or?
No, I just got it from, you know what? It's on the video. Let me make sure I get this right. So the snow is by videezy.com, and the music was ode to, was it Paco Bell?
It's on the video, isn't it?
I don't know how to pronounce it, but by Martin Skellikins.
Oh.
It was just royalty free stock footage stuff or stock music where you just have to give them you have to credit them and you can use it.
Cool.
And it was
Yeah,
really
nice.
pretty. We wanted something more like not very happy Christmassy. We wanted something sweeter and more melodic. And we thought that worked really well.
Yeah. All right. So does anybody else have any of the exercises they want to go over? Well, I mean, I know you, Vish and
Vish
Brian
and
can't
Brian.
yet, but
You can pause the recording, can't you?
I can, but it makes it all weird and I don't like doing it.
He'll remember.
It just makes it a little bit harder to like blend together, I guess.
Mm.
And it makes, for some reason, it makes Zoom take a little longer to do everything. I guess because it's like connecting, like cutting and then connecting the footage or something.
But other than the exercises, are we actually doing anything else today?
Yeah, we're going over a few things.
Oh, okay. Then, but I'm sure it's not that much, right? Because we
No,
always take
not
up
too
a little-
much.
Okay, so yeah, it should be done pretty quick, and then you guys can show yours.
All right, so I'm gonna quickly go over the stuff. Nobody else has anything, and then we can stop the recording and do it. All right, so the first thing I was going to go over was post-production and TV, but I really didn't find, at least not what I was looking for, the information out there. I was really wanting to know the differences between that and film production. I think this is from Reddit, so take it with a grain of salt, like everything. But from what we heard, television post-production is often a lot faster than film post-production. It could be like a month or a few months compared to a year or more for film. And so because there's so many episodes, of course, that makes sense. But to get the content done, they have to edit it a lot quicker. And so that's why you see a lot more mistakes and continuity errors sometimes in certain television shows than you might in a film, because they actually spend a lot more time on the film than they do in television episodes. Many TV shows also have a 2 to 3 editor rotation so that the editing can cycle through every 3 to 4 weeks for different episodes. That way, if 2 episodes are done filming, they can be edited at the same time. Sometimes it's a 4 editor rotation, depending on how many episodes are getting done and how quickly. and that way they can keep them going and everyone can be doing a different episode all at once, so that there's multiple productions getting done at the same time. Producers are often the ones to have final say over the edits and are more involved and have more say in the post process than directors do for TV. So just like everything with TV, the producers, which are also the writers usually, or part of the writer's room, they are a lot more involved and have a lot more say over everything than the individual directors, or even a director who is over a few episodes. And so even with the edits, it's pretty much going to be the final say goes to them, not really the director. And that's the same with the film, but it really depends like how big the movie is. Producers can definitely get involved with film to adjust the edit. And that's why you have like the director's cut, like, well, we have to cut it down to a certain time, or we have to, or this is too edgy for what we're going for, whatever it is. So then they cut it out and then they add those scenes back in as deleted scenes, or add them actually back into the film as a director's cut version later on. And so the same thing can happen in TV. But it's just the director kind of doesn't have as much say as they would in a film. And then TV show editing process, they usually go a certain amount of days for the editor's cut. Then they have a certain amount of days to do the director's cut. And then they have a certain amount of days to do the producer's cut. After the producer's cut, the studio gives notes to them, and the producer decides what notes to go with and which ones to ignore. And then the network will give their notes. The producer then decides what to do with those, whether they go with them or not. Obviously, they're going to go with them if it's something big and something important, but if it's something more story aligned, the producers are usually the ones who decide whether to do it or not, because it's usually not that big of an issue if they decide not to. And then the picture gets locked, visual effects, sound, music, and color get done and finalized. So, but it's just a much quicker turnaround than you would have on a film. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or anything to add on that? Any information you guys know? Yeah, so from what I heard, it's just like a lot of basically you're constantly editing, and it's constantly going to be new things. Right when you get done with the other one, now you have a new episode to edit. And so it's a lot different than film, depending on the process that the post-production takes. With film, they can also chop it up and give you 15 minutes to 20 minutes at a time to edit. And that way they're constantly editing throughout the process. So it can be a little similar to an episode, but I guess it would just be different in that with a film, you're editing one whole, and with a TV show, you're editing a bunch of parts.
I mean, it makes sense because at the end of the day, you also like the schedules and deadlines are also very different. It's a lot harder and riskier for you to push back a deadline on an episode than it is on a film.
Yeah, I mean, it is bad for a film, but it's definitely a lot easier to say, we're not releasing the film here, we're gonna push it back a few months because we're not ready, compared to an episode of TV where they already have the advertisers that paid to have their adverts show during that episode of whatever show it is at whatever time, and they have the time slots already filled out. So it's just a lot more work for a network or a studio to do to get, well, the network to change a schedule around, which is why it's so important they stick to it and keep that schedule rolling.
They could change it in a heartbeat. They always have a backup plan. Just in case, something does happen, there's always like an alternate set of programming, should I say. They can cancel a show like that and not even think about it. Just like, well, everybody's talking about the Batgirl movie they cut. I mean, that's a movie though, but the Batwoman show, like they just cut it like instantly and just replaced it with Steve Harvey's Family Feud, whatever. Like there's always some kind of backup. The TV is actually a lot more easier because there's like so many different media that they can replace it with.
I mean,
I
I
mean,
would imagine, yeah, they're probably.
I would imagine it's the opposite, but maybe yeah.
I wouldn't have. I mean, I would imagine like that'd be terrifying for for syndication, and they must have a plan B because that
yeah,
would make them
there's
lose a lot
always a
of
plan
money.
B.
Right, but it's still like with the advertisers. I don't know. All right.
No, but what I'm saying is, I'm sure it's a lot harder, and they would have to pay fees. Is what I would imagine.
I
Like,
wonder if the
yeah,
deals like would have to be renegotiated for the advertising companies and everything of what they pay to be time slotted in a certain area, or if they're attached to a show or not.
Oh, you're talking about like, I, I don't know. Oh, so that's hard to explain. Yeah, that one's kind of hard to explain. But yeah, I'm pretty sure like, you know, there's always like somebody that works it out that or something in the contract that says in the event of this, that, and the other, or whatever, we're gonna do this or that. It's kind of just like whenever they replace a character on a sitcom or something like that. Like people think that they're irreplaceable. TV shows think that they're, you know, oh, we need another season, and boom, surprise. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Now
I've
I
Look
seen.
at your character, you switched the actor, or you just killed them off.
No, I was gonna
Yeah.
say a thing that I think is super risky and kind of scary. I would imagine as a showrunner, would be replacing, like bringing back the same character with a different actor. Like I just got into Crazy Ex-Girlfriend right now, and I'm in season 4, or is it season something? And they brought back a character that left like season 1 or season 2, and it's a completely different actor. And it's so weird and so jarring to hear them call by the old actor's name. And I was like, man, I wonder how that process must be. And I think about like that 70s show when they changed to Lori, but it wasn't that big of a difference to me as a kid. Like I only figured it out later. So
Yes, sometimes when they do that, they can do that like Back to the Future 1 and 2. Like they can do it. Depends on who the actor is, who the character is, and how they play it off. But Batwoman, oh my gosh.
yeah, when it's a primary character, I can imagine it's so much harder.
No, it's not even that. Batwoman, they didn't even wait till the season. Like, you know, they didn't even wait till the end of the season to cancel the show. It was like mid-season. You know, if
And
you were
also
actually
hear that there
watching
were
that
a lot
show,
of
It was doing
safety
so bad that it
issues.
wasn't even worth.
No.
Oh, what
Yeah.
I heard was that there were a lot of safety issues. The woman who played Batwoman, the actress, I forgot her name.
not Batgirl, Batwoman. The WB
Batwoman.
series.
That's what I'm saying. Like I remember when the drama came out with the TV show, that basically she had gotten into like a huge accident and almost gotten paralyzed or whatever.
Oh no, they replaced her. Yeah, they replaced it. I'm talking about the fact that they canceled the show, like without any explanation. I mean, well, there was an explanation.
It didn't work.
Randomly canceled the show. I mean, aside from all the backstory and all the drama and then replacing her with another actress, but the fact that they randomly canceled the show like mid-season, like they didn't even wait to the end. Normally it's like the gracious, like
The
recording.
ratings must have been so bad for them to do that. Like it must.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you already have it
They were
produced
losing
and
money.
ready, you might as well ship it all out. But if they stop it, just like with the movie, like it's already kind of ready. They'd have to put a little more work into it, I'm sure, to get it finalized. But the majority of the money has already been spent, and then it's still not worth it. That means it's something really bad.
Yeah, I feel like when a TV show gets canceled, like mid-season or beginning of a season or something like that, then that is a sign that they are losing money, or they're like their ratings are so freaking bad that they're either losing money by having it on the air, or they're losing reputation or something. Because I just feel like wouldn't it be so much more costly and risky to like end it in the middle of season? That's scary.
But yeah, but like I was saying, there's always a back for them to do that. Says that hey, like they have something set up where they can actually do that, as opposed to just forcing it. And a lot of people don't remember.
It's so
I don't know. I feel
hard.
like with something like a cancellation, you'd have a plan because you know it's coming. Whereas like a schedule conflict or like it being you
They
know.
don't. There's no warning. Like Arsenio Hall, they canceled it. They told him, "Oh, you're getting another season," and then, boom.
Oh, I mean, in the
Oh,
network. The network knows they're going to cancel it.
No, I mean,
They see
it's
the
a lot of
numbers
this
and they
stuff
go,
is
"What are
like
we going to do?" And they might have
Oh,
like,
yeah.
a
That
short
makes it
time,
seem-
but they figure out how are we going to get around this and what are we doing? Are we going to keep it going or are we going to cancel it right now?
that
Yeah,
and
more
like
often than not,
they,
those things are not as surprising as we think they are. Probably in the pipeline, long time coming.
well that and they just don't know how it's gonna do. Like people don't remember they made an X-Men movie back in like '97, and it was called Generation X. It was supposed to be like X-Men before the X-Men we have now, and it was supposed to be like a pilot mini movie that was supposed to turn into a series, and it did so bad that you can't find like the only way to
It's like
get
the
it like
Star Wars Christmas special.
yeah, something like that is so rare to find it. Like they didn't even bother to like put it out on DVD and like, oh, we're gonna like, try to.
They wanted people to
it.
pretend that didn't exist. Like, let's just forget
That's
that.
The
exactly
Star
what
Wars
it's
Christmas
about.
special did the same thing.
No way.
yeah,
Christmas special? Oh no.
Oh, the Ewok
That
Christmas
really
special,
happened?
that
Did
was
that really happen?
it
Did
happened.
that really happen? No
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
You was
It
joking.
was
No
so
way.
bad.
Some stuff's just so bad that they never want to. They're embarrassed to show it, but they're like, "We got it done. You might as well." I think some of that stuff's like contractually obligated to show, and so they have to show some of it. And then they're like, even if they're embarrassed by it. So I feel like with a network show that you're going to cancel, unless it starts doing good, the writing is kind of on the wall as you're seeing the
Season.
episodes come in.
Then you're supposed to deliver the whole season. Something really strange happening, I think.
What?
It cut off.
Hello?
What'd you say, Fish?
It's cutting off. I think it's like something with his signal or something.
Hello?
Hey.
Oh, we can hear you now.
Oh, okay. So what I was saying, I don't know how much you heard what I said, but I was saying that contractual agreements usually would require you to give you for the all the episodes for the season, right?
Mhm.
And I guess if you're dropping right in the middle, there must be some really strange reason to for it to be cancelled. So I don't know. I think it's kind of these days. I don't know if that happens. The shows being cancelled right in the middle. Maybe and same thing for characters changing right in the middle of the season. I think it just kills the story, and it just takes a while for people to get into the show, and it just does bad to the. I think the show itself. That's what I felt when I watched some series, which was.
Yeah, and then
character
all of a
change.
sudden it's a new actor that they're calling their mom. Like, what? Who's this
Right,
lady?
exactly. That's what I'm saying. I feel like it's such a risky move because you're like, okay, we have an important storyline for this,
Right.
but it's a big risk to introduce a new character. So what are we gonna do? Are we gonna try to rewrite it, or are we gonna just put him in there and hope that people either don't notice or just keep on going?
Yeah, I mean, like, even for the characters, even for the actors to get into the character, it takes a while, and also for the audience to, to be able to absorb the new actors in the story is also like a weird experience.
Yeah, because you don't know who it is. Used to the other person, and then you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, every time I see his face, I say I don't remember which season it was because I'm watching it all at once because I'm obsessed. But I see his face and I'm like, they call him Greg, and I'm like, he's not Greg. It's so weird. Even when he sings.
What are you talking about?
Like the show that I'm watching with the completely new actor.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, they keep calling him by the name of the old actor, and they want me to think that okay, he just looks a little different. But no, I just can't.
I like it better when like the sitcoms will comment on it. They'll be like, "Did you get facial surgery?"
Oh no, yeah, they did make a joke.
My next movie, I'm gonna recast midway through. Just have that. Who are you? Recognize your old man.
I remember there were a few shows that do that there are a few shows that do that, and they're just like, "You look different."
I think Fresh Prince of
Yeah.
Bel-Air, the mom got changed, and they made some comment sort of
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
that was
Like, she hasn't been looking the
blunt.
same at all, or something like that. Yeah.
She got lighter. Wait,
Yeah.
she's using the new
Oh,
lotion.
I remember how I met your. Oh, sorry, my wife and kids did it because the first, I think it was like, I think it was just the first season. They had a different girl playing the daughter, the oldest daughter, and
Mhm.
the parents didn't like the mature themes that the show was taking her into, and they weren't comfortable with it, so they removed her, and they brought a lighter skinned girl, which a lot of people thought that was the reason, but no, it was just because of like family and stuff. But I remember the season 2 came in, and she was even older than the other actress. The other actress was like 13, and then next thing you know, season 2 comes in, this like 15, 16-year-old girl who's huge, and it's like, Claire, you look different. Did you do something to your hair? It's like,
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
So, yeah.
I was actually gonna ask that question because that's not the only show I saw that did that, like just change the character doing like the next day. Like, where did you show up? And then they found a way to just to, I guess if there was an issue, because I remember when they were having issues, it was with the mothers, and it was like a lawsuit, and it was the way they let her go. And then when she left, they replaced her with a light skinned lady. And then she made a
from what I
big stream about that.
From what I remember with the Fresh Prince situation, it was just because I think her and Will Smith didn't get along.
Oh, that's what you thought. Okay.
Yeah, they didn't
I
get along
heard.
at all.
She was really
Apparently, there was a
different.
lot of fighting.
Yeah, so it's either like one of the other, either like one of the important people in the production, like the main actor, or one of the main, like the showrunner themselves just don't really like somebody and they're kind of a side character, or it's the side character, maybe they went to rehab or something and they can't actually do production, or they
Which
just
is what
quit
happened with that 70 show.
and just leave because they give up and they're done with show business, or any number of like complicated logistical reasons like that would cause an actor to get replaced, as long as it's not like breaking a contract. Sometimes they'll actually buy people out of their contract to get them out because they just don't like them that much. Some actors
so
get
that's what they did
contracted
with
to
her.
be there for a season or like a multiple seasons, and then they don't like them or the audience doesn't like them, so they end up being like, hey, how much is it going to cost us to get you to let us terminate you? Either that, or they try their hardest to find a reason a justifiable reason to get rid of them based on some
Cut
kind
them
of
off, yeah.
contract.
They said her contract ran out.
Just seems like such an awkward conversation, huh? Hey, so
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you're not in the show anymore.
Yeah.
The audience doesn't
right
really
here.
resonate with you. So. Yeah. All right,
It's
moving
been
on from
real.
that. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just kidding. Like, it's been real.
Yeah.
Show you the door.
Right. Yeah.
Fun.
And then they have somebody else replaced in the next season.
Right. The next day.
Yeah.
And look absolutely opposite. No, stop. Okay, go ahead.
They look nothing like me.
Yeah, nothing like it. Like, what's going on?
All right, moving on from that, we're going to talk about animated TV and films. So this stuff comes from the round table. It's letter A in the syllabus. The video is called How Modern Cartoons Are Made, Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Disney Channel, and more. Just like with live productions, animated productions, and their workflow differ from production to production. So not every single one is going to apply to all of the same stuff. It depends on how the showrunner's doing it, just like with live action, and what the producers need and what the producers want, how the hierarchy's set up. Some of that stuff's going to differ from each one to each one, just like with live action shows and movies. After an animated show is pitched with a TV Bible, like with the script, the outlines, the storyboard, and other elements. And so it's basically the the pitch of the show, what the show's about, who the characters are in the show. We talked about this before, TV Bible. After that is pitched. If it is received well, it will be picked up for a pilot episode or a short preview around half an episode's length or less. Same thing as live action shows. There are some pilots that get shown to the public, but a lot that are only shown internally and then remade if received well with a large production quality and episode order. For animated shows, they can be what is called board driven. Oh, wait a minute, what? Do I have? So they can either be board driven or they can be script driven. Board driven shows are the writers writing the premises and outlines for the storyboard artist. Then the storyboard artists are responsible for the dialogue, and the storyboards are the things that carry the episodes. Let me see if I'm on the right thing. I feel like I'm mixed up somewhere, but it'd basically be like this. They write the, if it was a board driven show, then the writers kind of don't fill in all the dialogue and all of the things like that. They have the main outline of the episode, the circumstances that happen, and then the storyboard artist, as they are storyboarding it, come up with what the characters say in those moments and all of the in-between details that need to be filled out that the writers didn't write. With a script-driven show, let me go back. With the script-driven show, it's the writers writing out the dialogue and the actions, and the storyboard artists interpret that into the boards. So script-driven shows pretty much same as every other show. The script, you go by the script and you make the storyboards and you make everything else from it. While a board-driven show is basically the writers just making the action that happens, or the majority of it, and the storyboard artist filling it in as they go. So it's kind of like the storyboard artist is a writer for the show in that instance. And so that's the two main differences between what an animated production would look like, whether it's board-driven or script-driven. Either way, you're going to begin with the outline, which is going to be the episode's moments in order of how they happen, and then it'll be storyboarded. Typically, a board artist team will get 5 weeks to have a finished 11-minute episode. In animation, the storyboard shots are called scenes. So if you look at behind the scenes storyboards, they may be on scene 103, but really that just means shot 103. It's kind of, they said they don't really know why that is. That's just how it works in animation for some reason. So each shot is called a scene in the storyboard. That doesn't mean it's actually 103 scenes, especially if it's an 11-minute episode. Then there are thumbnails, which in the storyboard are mainly used to map out where a character is in the scene. If a character makes a face or does a quick action, it takes 2 panels to storyboard it. So it looks something like this, where you see the 2 storyboards panels next to each other of how the action is happening. The thumbnails can range in quality, but many artists draw them using shorthand. Shorthand looks like this. Shorthand is drawing a character recognizable in shape and size, but not in any detailed features. These are just quick to make and make it easier to map out where the characters will be in the scene. And so obviously it's that same character, but they're not going to do all the details of what she looks like and everything. And they just kind of keep it very basic. And that way they just kind of map it out sort of like this, which is very basic drawings to see what's happening in the scene and get it done very quickly, because they have such a quick turnaround of like 5 weeks for 11 minutes of an episode. After the storyboard artists are done mapping out everything, they'll do the pitch, which is showing it to the producers and the showrunners. So they'll map out the entire episode with the shorthand thumbnails, have a whole list of what's going to happen in the episode. And then they're going to pitch that to the producers and showrunners to see what they think and see if they like the episode or if they need to go back. They'll get the feedback for corrections and any changes. And then once those are done, the artist will pitch again to the whole crew. Normally there aren't many or any adjustments to be made after the second pitch. So normally they do the producers and the showrunners changes. And after that, it's pretty much good to go. And then they just pitch it to the whole crew, the rest of the crew internally, to see what they all think, and make sure there's nothing anybody points out that like could be changed or anything like that. Some shows give 3 weeks for the first thumbnail pass, and then 1 week for changes after the first pitch, and then 1 week for cleanup, where the artists make every panel very clear for what is happening. And so that could be going from something like this to something more like that, to make it just a little bit clearer what is happening. There's not as many lines. Whereas when you have more lines and stuff like that, it's more to just sketch it out and get it ready, doing those thumbnail images. So instead of having it be so scribbly and everything, now you're going to clean it up. What is actually happening in this scene? That way we're not getting anything confused when we're going to pass it down the line for animation. After storyboards are done, you're going to have the voice actors record their lines. The showrunner, together with the voice director, audio engineers, and a few other production crew, go through the board with the actors and record the lines. Not all actors are always available, so sometimes there are multiple recording sessions with different actors to get the episode fully voiced. But sometimes, if capable or able, they'll have the actors all in there at once, especially if they're reacting off each other. If there's 2 characters, they might put them in the same room if they're in the scene of the episode talking to each other. They might actually have them in the booth or in the separate booths, but at the same time in the same day, so they can hear each other and react off each other in real time. Other times, of course, the actor's not available, so they just have to do their own voice for it and react to either a stand-in voice person or just time their own lines to how they might react to somebody if they were there. After all the voice is recorded, animatic editing happens.
From what I've heard, a lot of them will either play the other person they're bouncing the lines off of, like play their audio, or they'll have them like in a headset or something to where they can respond after they hear. Or they'll have the director reading the line to them and then they'll respond.
Yeah, so it's either like a stand-in or it's something like that, so they have something to react off of rather than nothing. If they're the first one to go in the conversation, then they need a stand-in or something to have something to react off of, or they just have to do their own. It depends on production to production. I think most of the time they do a stand-in because it makes it easier for the actor to get a reaction and to act off of somebody.
Yeah.
And if it's the second person doing it in the conversation, then they can actually hear the other person's voiceover being played back, so they can react off of that. Or it could also be a stand-in, but it's usually one of those options or mixture of those. But after all the voice is recorded, then they start doing animatic editing. An animatic editor will be with a timing director, and they'll work to line up the boards with the recorded voice audio. So all the dialogue gets timed up with the boards so that they can see the episode's length, what's happening, if there's any gaps that are kind of, they need a line, they need something there, or it's just not working, and they'll see it play out a little bit easier. And it'll be something sort of like this, where you see the panels, but you'd also be hearing whatever they're saying or whatever sounds are happening at that point. If they're giggling and laughing and things like that, you would hear this playing. Animatic is played back like a film, holding on one or moving to another based on the timing needed. So if you have one panel of them standing there and they're supposed to say a huge amount of dialogue, they wouldn't be skipping by this quickly. They would stay on that one panel until that dialogue is done and then start moving on to the next panel so you can see it moving. And that's just to time it up with the actual voice so they can see how long the episode actually is and if they need to cut anything or what they need to do. Or maybe they need to add stuff and things like that. During the animatic phase, it becomes clear where more poses or lines are needed or where shots need to be changed. Once all the changes and notes have been made, the episode gets passed to storyboard revisionists. The revisionists may have something small, like making a shot wider, or they might have something more labor intensive, like redrawing the entire sequence of poses and adding more to make the action readable. Just depends on how it's coming across and how easy it is to understand. Any re-recordings and pickups are done after that with the voice actors. So if they do need a new line somewhere in between the scene because there's not enough going on for this little slight moment, or they need them to redo a line because it's just not working the way they want it to. And obviously it gets re-recorded with the actors. They have to get them back in to the recording booth and do another session. After that, it goes to design with background designers and background painters. Every episode needs backgrounds and sets for the characters to be in. So a background designer takes a rough layout done by the artist and turns it into what is called a line drawing. I'm not exactly sure the exact term, but I'm pretty sure it just means something that's a lot more clear than what was originally there. Like if you look at this, we see there's papers and there's some bricks and stuff on the wall. The line drawing would just make it a lot more clear exactly what that wall looks like and what those little square blotches are. Are they papers? Are they stones? And the line drawing would make it very clear what is in that background. So they make a very detailed version of that sketch that they have already. And then a background painter takes that and they take the line drawing and they paint it to show a scene's color palette and mood and make sure it matches the story and the scene that it's in. Then any characters that appear in the background need to be created by a character designer. And sometimes a storyboard artist will have a rough layout of what the background character will look like. No, that's not what I'm doing. Sometimes the storyboard artist will have a rough layout of what the background character will look like for the show. And they will work with the designer sometimes to make a character. Oh, sorry, no. Sometimes the character designer makes the characters themselves if it's not really that important. And other times, a storyboard artist has an idea for what that background character looks like, and it's very specific, and they need to work with them to get it done. So occasionally, a storyboard artist may work with the character designer if they have that very particular look in mind for the background characters. And then they'll help them put together what is called a model sheet. The model sheets have all the information needed to make a character, like the bottom of a shoe, whether they open and close their mouths, and other small details like that. And how do they look when all of those different things happen? So it can be as many sketches of them as possible, I guess, if you want it to be, because depending on what movement they need to do in the episode, they're going to show how they might look when they're excited, when they're sad, when they're opening their mouth, things like that, to see, so that the animators can nail the character whenever they need to animate them. Designers also work on what is called special poses, which are any board poses which may require special attention to make sure that they are very clear for the overseas animators. A lot of animation goes overseas and gets outsourced. to other countries. So they need to make sure that everything is extremely clear. So if it's something that these characters, it was not really in their character model sheet, it's something that they don't often do, a certain pose, or if it needs to be a certain emotion or something coming off of it, then a character designer will spend extra time on it to make sure that it's clear what they're doing and how it looks, so that whenever they do animate it, they get it right and there's no problems there. Pretty much everything, because all these animations are going to go overseas to outsourced separate animation companies to get fully animated. The storyboard artists and the designers and all these other things, they have to work together to make sure that they're making it as clear as possible, which is why you have the cleanups and all of that, to make sure when it gets shipped over there, it's easy to see exactly what they're going for, and then they can put it all together and animate it fully. And it'll be exactly what the original animators were thinking of whenever they were creating all these storyboard panels and everything like that. After the character designers, there's also color stylists, and that's going to show what the characters and elements will look like during different lighting in the show or in the episode specifically, like a character in the day compared to at night, or with a sparkling bright lightning bug near them, or in this case, how they might look on stage under a show light that is red or regular, or if they're in the shadow, or if they're out where the lights are. And so they show like how the colors change on that character and how they'll look in each light setting.
That is so cute.
What?
Doggy.
This thing? Like the general dog guy?
Yeah. And it is pretty cool to see how different. Most of this is just shadow and color, and it looks so different.
Yeah. Well, it's also changing the actual color. Well, yeah, it is color. It's changing the color of his jacket, adding certain light to areas as well, and like cutting it off at certain points.
Oh, yeah, I know, but like, if you look at it, most of it, like the subtle changes to his face and stuff, like just shadow.
Yeah.
And
Shadow or light,
yeah.
giving him dimension in different areas.
And that's really cool how different it looks.
Yeah. Well, it's also, obviously color.
Like, yes.
Yeah. Well, you already said that. I'm just saying, like,
I know.
because, the color of the actual thing needs to change. You actually need to pick a different color
Yeah.
for what it's going to look like under a light, how bright it's going to look, because it's just a 2D image at this point.
Yeah.
For 2D animation, anyway. But anyway, after that, the designers design all props and things the characters will touch. This is also showing different lighting circumstances. And they might give the actual hex code to show what exact color that's going to be under different lighting circumstances. And it's basically just, if there's extra lighting around, what color is that light? And how is it reacting to the character? So she has like a green glowing label on her hand in this image, and that light is reflecting all over her character. And so they show how that would look. But anyway, after that, the designers design all the props and things that the characters would touch. So that's the same thing as live action. You think props, anything the character touches, a glass, a cup, how is that going to look? That's not always going to be in the panels. The original panels is mainly just to show where the characters are going to be in the layout. So the storyboard artists that are doing that, it's mainly just to show how the episode plays out. And then as it goes on in these steps, they start to add all the elements and what the other elements are going to look like, and then like place those into the character's hands and things like that. It's also to show the props at all different angles, if it's pointed forward, if it's backward, if it's upside down, showing what it's going to look like so that whenever it goes to the animation department, they're fully animating it. So if the character's moving to the side and they see that the cup's going to be sideways, they can now have a point of reference to see what that looks like for the original animation team. Then after the design is done, the episode is sent or shipped to outsourced animation studios in other countries to animate the episode. After about 6 to 9 months and getting a few animation tests from the studio, the entire episode gets sent back to the network, fully animated, with everything in between filled out. Any mistakes get fixed if there's the budget for it, and then it moves on to post-production. Then there's compositing, like adding snowfall or other elements to make the picture complete. And then there's audio mixing, adding sounds and music to the episode and adjusting their levels to match the moment. Or music is composed and given to an audio mixer to mix. So that stuff's basically the same thing as live action post-production. With animation, you might animate an explosion, or you might just add in a visual effect of an explosion. And so it could either be during the production of the episode or it could be post-production. Just depends on how they want to go about doing it. But it's not always going to be hand-drawn or animated the exact same way. And then there's airing. Showrunners and producers have pretty much no say in how the episodes are marketed or when they are going to be aired. That's all going to be up to the network. Shows are running nonstop with work on new episodes. So there are production hiatuses to allow those working on the show to have a break. And if you hear that a show's on a production hiatus, it just means they're giving their crew a break because they've been working nonstop for however long. It doesn't mean the show's ending. And then there's also airing hiatus, which means that the network isn't going to show new episodes in that time. And usually the crew of the show continues working even at that point. And that could be done because they want to group them in certain episodes and show them in certain seasons, or maybe they just don't have enough episodes to continuously show them week by week and they want to do that. It could also mean that they're considering whether they're going to cancel the show or not. It really just depends on what's happening. Either way, if it's just an airing hiatus, the crew is going to keep working on the show until they get told not to anymore, if it gets canceled. Some networks sit on episodes for months before they air them, and many don't release each episode right when they're done. Usually the episodes are done well in advance. So with animation, it can be also hard to react to feedback from fans, because by the time they hear about it, it could have been, a year and a half after they had started producing it. And so they've already started producing so many other episodes that it's going to take a while for that change to come into effect if it needs to get done.
Of course, it can vary from studio to studio, but more often than not, they will order the first batch of episodes and sometimes multiple seasons at a time. Sometimes they'll just order the first half and see how it goes when it's like a show that they're not completely sure about. Something I've also seen, because I've been looking more into a few animated shows and like how their production was through the years.
Yeah. And so it really just depends from production to production and various other circumstances and situations which cause all these different things to happen. This next stuff comes from Nickelodeon Cartoon Universe. So YouTube channels, letter B, how we make 2D cartoons, Animation 101. It's actually this lady in the pictures who goes over the video, and she shows how design, storyboard, and casting and voice recording all usually happen at once, with some collaboration and communication happening throughout. This is for Nickelodeon shows specifically. So each network might have it a bit different, might have it very different from what this is. But with Nickelodeon, they try to do it all at once so they can get as many episodes done as they can quickly, and everybody's always working.
Yeah, what they used to do, I don't know if they still do this, but I know that a lot of Nick shows would have had like really long first seasons. They had like a lot of episodes that they ordered, and then they had shorter seasons after that.
Mhm.
I know that happened with SpongeBob and a few, for that happens, a few other shows where they had a lot of episodes in the first season and then they would have less. Or they would do the opposite where they would have like a little in the first season, then longer seasons after that. A lot of Nickelodeon shows, they also have this thing where they would test out their shows. I forgot what it was called. I think it was called Oh Yeah Cartoons or something, or that was that Cartoon Network. Cartoon Network had something similar. But what they would do is they would have like a certain hour of television where they would test out different cartoons and different concepts and see how people like them, which ones were popular, which ones are not. And the ones that were popular would get their own show and they would expand from these 15-minute episodes to longer episodes over time.
Yeah, some of I've seen I think Disney or Nickelodeon or something. They also do shorts.
Nickelodeon.
What was that?
I was gonna say Nickelodeon because a lot of
Well, I know Cartoon Network had it too. That's why I was trying to remember the name because I know they both did that.
Yeah, it's like
a
shorts that
lot
they
of
show. Some of them are in
Nick
between.
from Nickelodeon.
Some of them would be like in between episodes of other shows, and they'd be like one of the commercial breaks, sort of. But it was just to test out a new show and see if it's any good.
Yeah, I know the Fairly Odd Parents started out as one of those. Chalk Zone
Jimmy
started out as one of
Neutron or
those.
something like that.
Jimmy Neutron was a movie. It was intended to be just a movie, and then
Oh, I remember seeing shorts of it, and people said it wasn't a show yet.
I remember that the movie came out before the show.
I don't know.
The movie was successful, and then they made the show out of it.
By the way, that's one way they test it out on audiences in some networks is by making little short snippets of it. It's kind of like a preview for the audience compared to just being like a pilot episode. And that way they can get the reaction, see if they want to put money into it or not.
Especially because cartoons, especially hand-drawn ones, are a mix of both. They are more expensive production-wise. They're a lot more work. So it was actually really smart of them to take these little shorts of the cartoon of what it could be and show it to the audience and see which ones were successful and which ones were not. Because that way, think about it, you wouldn't have to give a bunch of money to producing the whole first season of the show. Instead, you could see if people liked these little snippets, these little clips, and if it was popular, then you would invest even more in making it into a show.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just a way to save money so you're not ordering something that's not going to do well. So yeah. But yeah, so according to them, like they have their final script after, of course, you write the script. They don't really do the board driven one. They do more of the script driven animation. So the script is what dictates the dialogue and everything like that and what happens compared to the other shows. Like I think Steven Universe is one of the animated shows that does board driven, where the storyboard artist is going to fill in the dialogue for the scene. But Nickelodeon does it from what I know, Nickelodeon does it based on the script. So they have it script driven animation. And you can see that it goes to the storyboard artist, the design team, and casting all at once to start.
Oh, I think Adventure Time was one of those shows.
Board driven?
One of those shows that started out as just little snippets.
I think so, yeah. But yeah, so it goes to the storyboard artist, casting for the characters and the voiceover artists and the design team all at once so they can review it and see it. And then it's going to be like a mishmash of collaboration between these three arms as they go. And it's going to be the black and white rough models with the design team. They're going to make the models of the characters and then the final models, and then they're going to do the color and background paint like we saw, final color, and then it goes down to checking. Storyboard artists, they do the storyboard roughs and then they make them clean after they get approved. Then it goes to the editor who makes the animatic that gets finalized and approved to be the final animatic, which then goes to be checked. Casting does the recording with the dialogue. The dialogue gets edited. Any like extra breaths or something like smacks and stuff like that is going to be taken out to make it cleaner and match whatever they're going with in the dialogue. In the dialogue, I don't know what the exposed X sheets are, but then it goes to make sure that it matches up with the storyboard, final sheets, and they all go to the checking. So of course, it's not all happening just on its own. All the yellow is going to be contacting the storyboard because they need the storyboard to work for them to be able to record over it and make sure they're timing it right and getting the scenes. But pretty much all of those collaborate throughout until it gets to the final part where they do the final check. And then if it's good to go, they ship it off to the other company, the outsourced company. So the main studio, they do all the key poses in the boards. And then the vendor studio fills in everything with in-betweens and cleans up the key poses so that it blends together smoothly. So if you think of a film and how we film at 24 frames per second, you're thinking of animation. If it was going to do 24 frames, the main studio might do frame 1, frame 4, frame 8, and just go by like that, just to get the main moments of that character's face down. And then the outsourced vendor studio, the ones that fill it in with full-on animation, they're going to fill in the mouth and the movement for each step in between. Vendors also animate and lip sync mouths. So the main studio will usually send something like this on screen, which is a mouth chart to the vendor so that they know how to animate that character's mouth. And they will give them the certain sounds that they make, not really letters, because sometimes the company they're sending it to doesn't speak clear English or doesn't know the English alphabet as well. So sending them and saying, this is what they do when they say A, as well as because, A could be
It's also a lot
or it could be.
simpler to instruct as opposed to like giving full on detail. It takes a lot more time. It's just
especially because the letter A could be, the word at, or it could be ah. I get it. So it doesn't really help figuring out what kind of mouth to do with that just because it has that letter in it. So instead they send over like grouped letters and what they sound like when they are sounds together. So when they say an O, it looks like this. Saying I or E or stuff like that, it's going to look like that. And that way they can get the idea of how to do the mouth for whatever sounds are coming out of that character's dialogue from the recording. And then they match it to it. So basically the outsourced studio does all the work. No, I'm just kidding. But they definitely do a bunch. And the reason why it's outsourced is just obviously it's cheaper than having it all done in-house here, because it's just cheaper with currency rates and all of that type of stuff to do it with another companies at another country.
And also once you separate those departments, it's a lot, it helps a lot as far as like predicting for error and that kind of thing, preventing errors and too much for one department.
It also helps with constant movement of new episodes getting done instead of being stuck on this episode and needing extra crew members to do the episode, or having the same people do the episode and you're working slower. So there's like a few different reasons to do it that way.
Yeah, exactly. You have one department working on this while the other one's working on that. You not only have like more of you have more time management, but you also have more organized, because it's like, oh, if something goes wrong in this department, they can fix it instead of us having to go all the way back and have that department have to take care of it when they're already taking care of something else.
Yeah.
I've already moved on to the next project and all that.
Right. So after the vendor sends it back to the post-production starts, and just like with live action, there's ADR, which is automated dialogue replacement. That's if any lines don't work, if they don't match up or anything, they need to re-record dialogue at that point. They have to ADR it. Music, it's either composed or taken from something to be added to the scene. And the sound effects, Foley artists and stuff like that, or just a sound effects library are taken. And so they're all done at the same time as compositing and visual effects until the mix then color correction and grades, quality control, check, and final delivery. So yeah, I mean, I pretty much just went over this whole thing. So basically visual effects are going to be happening. Like I said, that could be rain, that could be snow, that could be stuff that's harder to animate. Sometimes it is animated. Sometimes it's just a layer, like what I did with our exercise, where it's just a layer of snow over the live action or the animated image. And other times they actually animate all the snow into it. It just takes a lot longer. So that's why they sometimes vouch for going with the visual effects. Or they just want to have a certain blend of different animation types and styles. I know a lot of shows try to do that too sometimes. And so they just go for the CGI look for certain effects while they have the cartoon stuff for everything else, or vice versa. But that goes to the final mix, so that they mix the dialogue, the music, and the sound effects together at certain levels so that the music isn't too loud over the dialogue if the dialogue needs to be heard, or that it is loud if it's supposed to be in the show, or the sound effects, if it's supposed to be very jarring, it's very loud and takes your attention, or if it's supposed to be something in the background like a bird chirping, they lower it so that it's not distracting, and they kick some out if they're not needed and they're just cluttering up the sound as a whole. Color correction, same thing as live action. Then you go to color correction, make sure everything matches, everything looks good. They need to stylize it anymore. That's where it's going to be done. And then they make sure that they do the quality control check. Everything's technically working out. It's all good. There's nothing wrong with it. So they can finally put it to the network, or give it to the network so that the network can decide when they want to release it. Yeah. This next stuff comes from movie Mavian. It's a letter C in the syllabus. How modern cartoons are made and why they take long to make. For pitching cartoon ideas to studios, they typically only accept pitches from people already working for them. You can't really walk up to a studio with an idea and get it made. You're trying to make a cartoon. They also mostly only take ideas from people that have worked with them for years. So it's not just you work with them, but it's also people who have already been working with them for a while. One of their executives might have an idea, and they're more likely to be able to get their idea across to the whole executive board than it would be for someone lower in the company or somebody not even in the company at all. There are people who make their work and post it on YouTube or other places, and if it's successful, it can get picked up by a studio as well. And sometimes that'll happen, or they'll just get hired into the studio and work on other productions until they get their opportunity to pitch their own idea. Directors on animated series can direct one episode or a multitude of episodes, but usually not all of them. Just like with live action, directors for animated TV, they're not going to do every single episode because they just don't have time for that. A lot of them are in production, different stages of production all at the same time. So one person can't be doing all of that. And the main thing a director needs to do, I think, is like the voice direction is a big part of it. And I think there might be different roles for different specific directors and different animation departments. Not 100% on that, but I'm pretty sure there's more than one like director, but there's really only one that oversees the whole thing, where one does like individual pieces of the episode. So they might be called a more specific title. And this comes from usv.edu. It's letter H in the syllabus. With 3D animation, the beginning process is much the same. The script and the concept creation, storyboard, an animatic, and character creation. However, then it's much like CGI in live action, where there's 3D modeling, there's surfacing, there's rigging, making the character movable and how they're going to move when they move their arms around. Effects, lighting, and rendering are done to bring the 2D storyboard images into a 3D space. So if you look at it like this, it would be like you get a drawing of that, and you have to figure out how to make it look more like a 3D animation. Once all components are ready, it's typically outsourced for the full animation, just like 2D animation. Sometimes with 3D animation, a pre-visualization would be done in place of animatics or on top of animatics, but it just depends from production to production. Pre-visualization is basically just taking the shapes and the geometry of the scene, having it play out as if it were the film. So it's basically like an animatic, but it has, they usually have a character kind of just floating in the air if they're walking to show like them moving from one part of the scene to the next. And that can be done in the computer 3D, same way they would do if they're making a full line animation. They just use very simple animation and geometry to get the idea of the whole scene set across. With feature animation, they have much larger budgets and spend more time creating the product than TV animation. Features allow for more retakes and revisions, and for more focus to be spent on individual aspects of the animation. Artists on features may be working on one aspect of a shot longer than they'd work on a scene in a show. So sometimes weeks to months, they could be working on one aspect of a thing, but this really depends on, again, the production and how they set it up. Features also allow for more experimentation and exploration, where shows have things a lot more rigid and like figured out. I believe I have a note in here. There's also that with animated TV, I had recently read a Cuphead show interview, and one of the animators said that when an animated show was ordered, it's usually ordered as 26 half-hour episodes. And so even if a show has a second season, it may not mean any more work for the animators because the distributor may have split the episode count into 13 for the first season that's released to the public and 13 for the second season released to the public, even though on the back end for the actual studio or the production or the network, they've only actually ordered one season of the show. So they said it kind of sucks if the show does really well because they don't have any pull to get more funding or more money or more pay, I guess, per episode, because realistically, just because season 1 did well, season 2 is coming out, but that's because it's already made and they've already done that. It was ordered as season 1. And that just goes back to them distributing it however they want and it not being up to the animators. It's up to the network to decide how they want to do the show. They could do an 8-episode season when they have 30 episodes made. It just really depends on how they want to do it, how they want to break it up. And then of course the marketing, that's all done by the network as well. But yeah, does anybody have any questions, comments, or anything to add about animated TV or animated films, 2D or 3D? All right, so the last thing we're talking about is a film distribution plan. We've already talked about this some, so I just have some quick notes on it. But when you're thinking about making a film, you need to be thinking about planning and budgeting for distribution before you make the film, before you start production. You should really think about having a distribution plan on paper and in your mind. Like, are you going to try to enter festivals? What if you don't get in? What next? What if you do get in, but you don't get offered a deal from any distributors? What are you going to do after that? Maybe you don't win an award either. You just enter a festival. So then what's the next step? Will you go to film markets to try to sell your film? Which distributors will you try to contact and set up meetings with? Will you just try to get in touch online through phone calls? Which distributors will you contact online? When will you begin attempting to contact these distributors? Like, how far into production are you planning to try to get in touch with distributors in the first place? Is it not till the film is done? Is it after the script is finalized? Is it during production? Is it during post-production? When do you plan to contact them? Will you try to get a sales agent, a producer rep, or go with an aggregator? If so, when are you going to try to get in contact with one of them? Where do you plan releasing the film and how? Theatrically, video on demand? What kind of video on demand if you're doing that? Advertisement-based video on demand on a free streaming service, a subscription-based streaming service, or are you going to try to rent out or let people buy digitally your film through transactional video on demand? Are you going to try to with home video? Will you try to self-distribute? When will you get production stills, behind the scenes, key art, and the trailer done? What about the other deliverables? When are you going to try to get those done? Are you going to do those during the process or wait until you're completely finished with the film? Obviously, some deliverables can only be done when you have the finalized film. Other ones can be done somewhere throughout the process. It just depends on what you're trying to be working on, what you expect to have to be able to deliver when you're trying to do a distribution deal. Will you post to your own website or to YouTube about like if you don't have anywhere to go with the film? Are you going to try to do one of those? Which streaming platforms will you attempt to get on? How will you get in touch with them? Do they require an established company to be a go-between? And what do
And
they?
that research is really important so you don't end up wasting your time.
Yeah, if you're trying to get on Netflix, you can't just go to them. You got to get somebody who's worked with them before that they trust to like your film and want to distribute to them. And just because they do doesn't mean that you're going to be on Netflix unless Netflix agrees with their pre-established partner that that film is good. But you need to know all that stuff to make sure that you make a plan for it. What are the sales estimates or the projections for the film? Who is your target demographic? If you are self-distributing, how are you going to market your film to your demographic? What main social media will you use? Are you going to try, or is it viable to try for international distribution? What rights will you sell and what rights do you want to be sure to retain? If doing theatrical self-distribution, will you go for small targeted cities first or larger main cities and then go to the smaller ones? Or will you try to shotgun it all over the place all at once? And that one I would say you shouldn't, but if you want to just get it over with, that is one way to do it. All of these questions and more need to be figured out before you have the film, before you make the film, so that you're not having to plan and figuring out on the spot as you go. You already have a plan in place and you know where you want to take this film. And even if your plan A doesn't work, you can have a plan B in mind, or you can have it written out. Depending on how complex and how detailed your distribution plan is, you'll be able to plan for different scenarios and make sure that you know where this film's going to go and you know what's going to happen if certain things don't work out. The main thing about having a distribution plan is never have just one thing you want to happen. I want to get into Sundance. Okay, that can be a goal and that can definitely be part of a distribution plan, but you don't want to make it be your only goal and your only thing and not have anything else of what if you don't get in. That needs to be part of your distribution plan too, because you might not get in. It's more likely that you're not going to get in than it is that you will. So certain things like that you have to figure out, and having a good thought out distribution plan with plenty of ifs and buts and maybes all planned out for what you do in those circumstances will have you be a lot more successful than trying to do it as you go. Does Does anyone have any questions, comments, or anything to add about distribution plans? Another thing it will do, I'm going to add right before I just thought of.
Okay.
Another thing it'll do is it will allow you to actually think of these things yourself. Some of the stuff that you're maybe not thinking about, because it might have you think of like, who would even buy this film? And if you find out that nobody would, maybe you want to change your script a little bit, or maybe you want to figure out some other way to go about it. There's plenty of questions that can come up that you never thought of that can help change your story or help change your plan as a whole, just based on some of the things that you thought of that you didn't think of before. Just like we've been doing with production design, how you start thinking of all these different things logistically, realistically, like what can actually be done with this budget. The same kind of information can start coming up whenever you're talking about distribution plans, where you think about, how am I going to distribute this? How much money do I need to do what I'm trying to do and distribute this? If I'm trying to self-distribute to theaters, I need to make sure I have enough money to make the posters and make the digital cinema projects so that they can show in the theaters through their projectors. All these things need to be thought of beforehand so that you also have the budget for it when it comes around, because there's any avenue you take, it's going to cost some amount of money. So you always want to prepare for it and not just get there and be out of funding. Go ahead, Annie.
No, nothing. I was just gonna say, I feel like there's, like we were talking about last week, there's only so much that we can learn online and through other people's experiences with this. There will, of course, be a lot of things that you'll have to learn on your own when you're actually going through it. But I feel like we always say, the main focus is for us to go into it with some basic knowledge and knowing how to hold our own.
Well, I think having a distribution plan you can do without needing to go through it. If you need to go through something to have a plan, then you're gonna fail.
No, exactly, but that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like a lot of us look at it and like, oh, well, I'm not a specialist. I'm not like a professional. I can't do this by myself. There's a lot that you can do to start and to have an idea and to be able to present to them, to the people you're pitching to and all this stuff. That makes a huge difference, you know?
Yeah.
We're a
And
lot
you'll
more
definitely
capable
learn
than we
more
think.
as you go, like you said, but there's
Yeah.
definitely a lot you can pre-plan out and think of before you get to that point, instead of just disregarding everything about distribution until you get to it, because that's a huge mistake. Just like with post-production, with the budget, a lot of independent films, they don't factor in post-production even into the budget, and then they don't have money to edit, do sound and music whenever they get to that point. So they've spent all that money and time just filming it and getting the production done, but then they don't have any money to edit it or to get it post-production finished. And so then it either gets stuck or they have to find additional ways to get some money for that. And so I don't know, like the distribution then comes after that. And if you're self-distributing, you need to also think about marketing. And so those should also factor into your budget. And that's definitely something everyone can do before you come across it in your own experience.
I just feel like even though in the indie scene, even though a lot of the people working in it should or think of themselves as a jack of all trades, and sometimes we run into the opposite issue where it's hard for us to give control and let different departments do their thing. We also run into the opposite issue where we think, oh, it's never going to be as good as a professional shoot. It's never going to be as organized as a quote unquote professional shoot. So I should just do the bare minimum, or I should just not go into as much detail because I'm not a professional, or because I'm not as qualified, so I probably won't do as good of a job. When that's not true. Like today we have so many resources online and so much that we can learn and prepare for to do the best that we can.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so the last thing I'll say is Monday, we are going to go over the fill in the blanks forms. I already sent them out. If anybody didn't get them, let me know. I sent it out through email. And we'll be going over that as a group. So I won't be cornering anybody to have theirs be revealed. It's just going to be for your own practice to see what you know, what you remember. And then we'll all go over it as a group to fill it all out.
Yeah, it's more
And-
as a refresher for everyone, and also like a fun little game to make it more dynamic instead of just let's recap everything. So there's this and this.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And then on Thursday, next Thursday, we're going to be doing the quiz, which is just asking the questions, refreshing again on most of the semester. And then we'll also talk a little bit about what next semester, which will be our last semester, will entail. But other than that, thanks to everybody for coming. I'm going to stop the recording so we can see Vish and Brian, so we can see your guys' exercises.